Hey everybody, so we're back again for another video. So today's video of the day is going to be part 2 of parts of a bicycle. So our first VEDA day number 1 was the parts of a bicycle, and we were looking at this Roadmaster Mount Fury, and we did about the front half of the bike, but we still had quite a bit to go. So I went ahead and labeled the remaining parts, and I'm just going to take you through them real quick. But again, if you want to follow along and do this yourself, all you need is some tape and a pen or a marker, and that should be enough for you to participate in the activity. Okay, so we left off in this general vicinity on the bike, and so I think one of the last things I did was the seat post, and so we're just going to move down from there. And this tube right here, the tube that holds the seat post, is called the seat tube. Pretty easy. So I have a piece of tape there. As you can see, it says seat tube. So that's the seat tube. Okay, now moving down, we had talked about the cranks and the pedals, but the piece that's holding the crank, this little circular piece right here, is called the bottom bracket. And I see that I have it labeled as such, bottom bracket. Okay, now we're going to move around to the other side of the bike, actually, and there's quite a few things to learn on this side. So you'll notice on most bicycles there are 2 or 3 rings with little spikes on them. Okay, those are known as the chain rings. Now some bikes have just 1, but most bikes you're going to look at are going to have 2 to 3 chain rings. Now another way that we refer to the chain rings, the whole set of them, we refer to as the crank set. Now why do we call it the crank set? Because it's the set of gears that are attached to the crank. So the crank set are the gears up front. Okay, and you can see that I've got crank set labeled right there as such. Okay, and as you know, as you probably know, this is the chain, and it's attaching the crank set of gears to the rear gears, which we'll get to here in a minute. So that's the chain. Now these rear gears are referred to as the cassette, like a cassette tape, but these are called the cassette. This particular bike has 6 chain rings in the cassette. Some bikes have up to 12, but most bikes you'll see from a department store are going to have 3 chain rings up front and 7 in the back, which is a 21 speed bike. Okay, now the last part we're going to talk about are called derailleurs. What's that word again? Derailleurs. Okay, so what on earth is a derailleur? Okay, so a derailleur is what moves the chain to different gears on the bicycle, both in the rear and in the front. Okay, the way I like to think of it is if you've got a toy train and it goes off of the tracks, that's called derailing. It's going off of the tracks. Well, I think of it as, this is the derailleur. It moves the chain off of one gear, it moves it off onto another gear. And so I think of it kind of as derailing from one gear and going into another gear. I don't know if that is an acceptable term in the bicycling industry, but that's just the way I think of it. Okay, so the derailleur on the front is just simply called the front derailleur, and it's right here. Okay, and this piece right here, when you shift at your handlebars, will move left or right and move the chain onto different chain rings based on what gear you want to be in. And likewise, the rear derailleur will move the chain back and forth along the cassette to your desired gear that you want to be in. So there you have it: rear derailleur, front derailleur, chain, crank set, and cassette. All of that is referred to as your drivetrain. I'm not going to label that. but essentially this entire system is referred to as your drivetrain. Okay, so there you have it. There's your video of the day. We've now labeled all the parts of this bicycle, at least the parts that are most important to remember. So if you like this video, give us a thumbs up, like, and stay tuned for more content.